Well, listen here. Good morning and welcome to Mornings with Marvel, where authenticity lives and thrives to create a space of growth, healing, and joy. I am your host. Yes, you're where we're going to go. Marvel went early again. Listen, there's so much to discuss this morning. I had to start early. I am your host, Andrea Lawful Sanders, and each day we will cover the topics that are informative and engaging while learning from each other. What a time we had yesterday in the general elections, up and down ballots across states around the country. So much happened yesterday evening that deserves a discussion. That I reached out to David Alexander Jenkins and I said, we need to have a dialogue this morning if you have time. David is flying again. And so I wanted to, and so he said yes. So he'll join me at 6:30 because I have a guest at 7 o'clock that I want you to hear. I see that Senator Art Haywood is going to join me um either tomorrow or I can't remember. But he's on my calendar, and I'm just interested in having the dialogue about who, what, why, where. He's going to talk to me about the SNAP benefits and what he has been doing at the state level to mitigate some of the things and where people can go to get food. We're not going to stop with that, but let me start with my morning motivation, because let me tell you something. I wrote this 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I wrote this. And I keep telling people, we love to talk and pontificate, but when you pay attention, you learn things. On November 4th, 2020, I wrote this. I have made several predictions here over the years about the elections that turned out to be absolutely true. And I am about to give you some more, so buckle up, buttercups. Black and brown people are literally turning this election into one where a Democrat is on track to win the presidency, and the young voters especially have begun to send messages that the foolish are ignoring. This was in 2020 when Joe Biden got in the race, and the congressman from South Carolina lifted him, and black people were like, all right, well, we just got to figure out what we're going to do, but we know we want something different. And so I have said this on local airways, even as young voters, have been dismissed as a virtual non-factor. To the elected officials who have enjoyed being elected by the same tongue-tied few, the young people have their sights on you and are coming for your seats within the next 1 to 2 election cycles. No, David, 6:30. Let me go back to this. The elected officials who have enjoyed being elected by the same tongue-tied few, the young people have their sights on you and are coming for your seats within the next 1 to 2 election cycles. We saw that happening last night. Remember, I told you this, so keep ignoring them at your own peril. To the Democratic Party, Black people took your bacon out of the fire again. That was in 2020. This time, though, you better understand that no one is allowing you to continue taking those votes for granted with nothing to show for it. They will put their coins and votes into new blood because they are sick and tired of the foolishness you call leading. Once you get your slack jaws up and your irritation in check, gather yourselves to either start working effectively and efficiently for your constituents or make other plans for retirement. You kept wringing your hands and shaking your heads in disbelief and denial as we kept being killed, maligned, and suffering on every level. The sleeping and apathetic giant has now awakened. Mark my words. I wrote this 5 years ago. Here we are today. Last night, we learned that many of the Hispanic voters that voted in 2024 for Donald Trump, a good 20% of them per MSNBC, flipped the script and voted down the ballot, blue wave, down the ballot, up and down. We saw last night that centrists, people who are not left-leaning Democrats, but people who are in the middle, the two women who became governor, one in New Jersey. She's the second one, Mikey Sherrill. She's the second woman because it was Governor Christy Todd Whitman was the first woman to become governor of New Jersey. Mikey Sherrill is now only the second woman. And in Virginia, we have a woman who became a governor for the first time. And we watched them repudiate the Latinos when they were voting down the blue wave yesterday said they watched so many of their people being grabbed by ICE, so many of their people being dragged out of here, so many people, and they're there now who if you pay attention, the Latinos are the largest voting bloc. And so they're watching to see who stands up to the administration. They're watching to see who doesn't stand up to the administration. They're not asking you any questions. They're just paying attention because there's a lot of suffering that's been going on within their enclaves. And they've just, many of them kept coming on the air saying, we voted for the president. We did not think this was going to happen to us. And so it continues. I want David to come on so we can talk, and he's going to come on soon. He's traveling because I want to talk about Mandani. I watched from June up until November well-known staunch Democrats who were just like, including the speaker, Hakeem Jeffries. We are not doing this. He is anti-Semitic. There were 180 rabbis who signed letters saying he was anti-Semitic. And as I am doing my research up and down, because I stay quiet. As I'm doing my research up and down, I didn't see where the man was anti-Semitic. What he said was he believed in the right for other groups of people to live and not just one group, right? Not just one group. And so New Yorkers are tired. New Yorkers were tired. Somebody was like, well, he's wealthy and he lives in a rent-controlled apartment. I said, but being wealthy and living in a rent-controlled apartment has never stopped you from voting for the wealthy rent-controlled apartment people who ran for office and won. So exactly what are you saying? Are you saying that you didn't want to vote for him because he's Muslim? Just say that. Say that instead of using these cute little keywords to talk about, why he should or shouldn't be. I am disheartened, but not shocked by some of the comments that I have seen last night, right? When people were being dragged, you saw the videos of folks being torn up, arrested, shot at. One woman was shot at 5 times. That ICE officer is now being charged. You all were beating the drums, talking about, get rid of them, blah, 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 get rid of the illegals. And now it's not just the illegals, quote unquote, but people who are born, raised here, that are of color, people who have their citizenship, their naturalized citizenship. All those folks were being put into encampments, right? Alligator, Alcatraz, they called the one in Florida, which they said all those people were moved and nobody can find them. They're all gone, right? Folks showing up in cities and martial law being declared in different cities, and folks are, we passed yesterday a warship right outside of Penn's Landing. We see warships, showing up, and submarines showing up all around the Caribbean. We see stuff happening now with Nigeria, and we're sitting here. And folks, when they went out to do their No Kings March, and they were ignored and laughed at, they said, all right, while we have an opportunity, we're going to go to the ballots. So the conversation this morning is not just for the Republicans, it's for the establishment Democrats too. It is time, it is way past time for you to start fully listening to the people. It is way past time for you to do what the people are asking for. They're sitting and watching in dismay that the people that they voted for are just sitting on their hands going, well, what can we do? We have to do these things incrementally. You have to shift completely. You have to completely rework how you operate, or more of this is going to happen. You have to begin choosing people, not just from establishment. They've been around for God knows how long, and we're going to endorse folks, because you're seeing people who are not endorsed by the establishment party are winning these elections. That is not a coincidence. It's not a coinkydinky, not even a little bit, right? We are watched here. The Supreme Court judges were retained. The state Supreme Court justice of Pennsylvania still feels a little safer, versus, because if another party had won, then you'd start to see the gerrymandering and the redistricting and all the other stuff. People who are Republican state senators and Congress people, they now see that they are on the agenda. They now see that if they don't do something to help the people of this country, the people of this country is going to come out and vote. Now, Here's the thing that is happening that I don't think a lot of people are paying attention to. Because they know this is going to happen. Texas, North Carolina, and another state have decided that they want to gerrymander and redistrict the state so that they can win more elections. That is how they're working now to win more elections. There was a state that said, no, thank you. They voted, I believe it's Kansas. Kansas was on the ballot. Should they redistrict Kansas? And they voted no for that. And in California, where they asked for Proposition 50, should they redistrict to fight fire with the Republicans, the people in California, 63% of them said, hell yes, right? So you cannot. One of the things that powerful people fear the most is the uprising of the people, right? And for a good 5 to 6 months, there were so many folks who were in the anxiety, and the anxiety is still there. We all feel the anxiety. Maybe we should just, maybe we can, maybe we, all right, okay. And you still have to prepare, y'all. Don't trust me when I tell you. These people winning is not going to fix things overnight. They are going to have some plan. The Republicans still run the Congress and the House and the Senate. We still have a Republican president of the United States, so they will continue to do what they've done, except maybe for those who are up for re-election in the primaries next year. So pay attention to everything that's going on around you and stop behaving as if all is going to be well all of a sudden. Know that the wealthy, the people who run and operate everything, fear people uprising the most. And the best thing you could have done was use your voice. Now, when I looked at the numbers for Philadelphia, usually, 100,000, 1.2, show up. Yesterday, over 300,000 people of 1 million registered voters showed up. Now, the numbers are not, it's not 1 million people that showed up, but it's 3 times what people would normally do in an off-season election. So folks are heartened by that, and they should. And I have to say, Commissioner Omar Sabir, has been working his tail feathers off. I saw him. I've been watching him. He didn't just wait until it was 2 weeks before elections. I watched him over the summer, just doing the work, getting the word out to the people. So where do we go from here? Where is David? I don't see him. Hold on one second. Hold on, David. I didn't send him the message. I'm sorry. So where do we go from here? I want to have an in-depth conversation about Mandani and what happened there. He is 34 years old. He is a Muslim. And he is young, right? He has fought the establishment politics. The Democrats worked harder, I thought, than the Republicans to keep him out of office. I had never seen such a thing in all my life. And then I saw a whole bunch of Democrats saying things like, he's not good, and we need to vote for Cuomo, and all those things. And then last night they were like, oh, we have a whole blue wave. Because you see, many of those people who were fighting against Mandani are established people who will get paid to be pundits, get paid to show up to different things. They made millions of dollars working within the establishment of politics in the Democratic Party, right? And so when they realized that they could not be beaten and that over 2 million people showed up to vote, the people's voice was so strong. What lesson did they learn from this? Somebody tell me, what lesson did they learn from any of this? So let me read some of the whose speech, Dennis? Because it was it Mandani's speech? I don't know. So Angela Jones says this is not over. This is just the beginning. Know that it's going to get worse, absolutely, before it gets better, because now they're pissed off and they're trying to figure out, how we're gonna make people suffer. Good morning, Viola. Laura, yes, we still have to be prepared, even though things are changing, because the change is happening. Angela said, time for we the people to demand our government work for the people. So anybody who's running for office right now, and let me be clear, because I have invited everyone that is running for the 3rd Congressional District in Pennsylvania Some may respond, some may not. But the ones that respond will continue to get the airtime to talk about what what their values are, why they're running, what they plan to do for the people, etc., etc. We're no longer going to sit around and says, oh well, can we? Mm-mm. And I am also interviewing Republicans. One of the things that I got challenged for on the radio was like, you can't interview anybody but Democrats, and I'm like, but you got to interview everybody. Stop acting like the people don't have enough sense to say this is who we would choose versus who we would not choose. Glory. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Mandami.
Talk to me about that election. Tell me what your thoughts are.
I want to say that every time Americans are pushed to defend themselves, that what we see is a country that comes out for better or for worse, defending the issues that mean something to it. And every time that we allow ourselves to begin to believe that America is a monolith, one which is bipartisan, one which ascribes to a particular ideology, one that only has space for this limited view, we find that we elect somebody who is extraordinary, not always good, but
Mhm.
always extraordinary in what they bring to the table. Now, Mandami, I find actually to embody not just extraordinary qualities for a candidate. This is a Muslim immigrant who has challenged not only conservative thought, but also not towed the line of the Democratic Party in the United States of America. So here we have someone who is perhaps the most third party like candidate um, to be elected to such an office. It reminds me a little bit of Bernie Sanders, if you will,
Yep.
but a young version of Bernie Sanders. And what we see is that he's polling in a very popular way, not just in New York, but the opinion polls of Mandami across the country
Yep.
are huge. I
Yep.
think I find a lot of people addressing Islamophobia this morning. I see lots of posts about 9/11 when we know that the commission told us that it was Israelis who were heard on the voice recordings in the cockpit of those planes that drove themselves into the building. We have that information, and yet we still like to blame this on a Muslim terrorist group, which, by the way, we won't get into too far this morning, but it asks us to go deep into ourselves and ask why
Mhm.
we have such phobia of particular groups of people based upon where they come from and who they are. Um,
And why
and
isn't it okay for you to defend your people while allowing other people to be dragged and treated horribly in a country where you live? Why is it that you're
and see, right, that's a yes. I addressed this morning, as you know, a school of thought that is the first thing that Americans have to remember is that they are Americans.
Mhm.
And that the job of the United States of America is defend America against domestic enemies, foreign and domestic. And so when we look at what it means to be United States of America and what it means to be America first on this conservative movement, that would include being America first. And so Andami is an American, and
they
he
all
sings to the
they
values.
the Islamophobia. Oh, he is anti-Semitic. He has done this. He has done, and I've been researching.
He's
I've
not.
been researching.
Yeah, no. What I think he is anti-Israel, but I think a lot of people in America are anti-Israel. A lot of people are sick of defending, funding, creating more and more
So that's why we're getting he is going to cause more hate against Jewish people.
Yeah, it's not. So this is the problem that I find many Jewish people understand that to be Jewish is in direct conflict with being um, I'm losing the word, a Zionist.
Mhm.
That to be a Zionist requires you to believe things that are not found as credible in the Torah or in the Talmud, right? Both of those books have very specific ways about the way in which the Messiah comes again that Zionism tears apart and shreds and just does
Mhm.
what it wants to do. So there is a difference between being a Zionist, which doesn't require you to be Jewish. You could be anybody and be a Zionist, and being Jewish. Okay, that's the first thing. So I like to separate people who are anti-Semitic from people who are anti-Israeli.
Mhm.
There's a difference. There's a big difference. You can be absolutely against the government and regime that is currently set forth by the United Nations Resolution 181 that just took over somebody else's land and plopped themselves down that we have been funneling billions of dollars into for God knows how long, and still absolutely be pro-Jewish people.
Mhm.
And you can be pro all of the things about Judea and Jewish people and not support Israel, right? And so there is the first truth. The second is that you can absolutely be pro Islam and pro all of the principles that Islam teaches and Muslim faith across the board of these loving principles,
Mhm.
and be against sects of that religious body that might
Mhm.
also have horrible behavior in
Right, that
certain
cause
places in the
harm
world,
to
right?
groups of people, right?
That
Mhm.
is like being a Christian and saying that we are absolutely against the rape of children in the
Mhm.
Catholic Church, and
Mhm.
yet we are still Christian. We don't all of a sudden say, "My God, Christians are bad people," because there is a group of Christians which
Mhm.
abuses children and traffics them, right? We don't say that all Christendom is horrific, but yet we do it with other religions. So I want us to be very careful in that first part. But I also want us to say, Mandame is American. He sings to what America was built for, what it's about, and he won a very clear race. He was a
He
front
did.
runner for a long time. He won a very clear race, but not just him, not just him. Two women
Yes, both
pulled through,
centrists, right? Both
both
centrists. Both
centrist.
fought with the Democratic Party, about the things that were going on in establishment politics. And so I want folks to understand that there is power in the people, the thing that they don't
Absolutely.
want you to realize, and that the power in the people is not just for one group. There are many groups who are marginalized. And then we have to ask ourselves this question: why is it the term Muslim frightens the hell out of everybody?
Propaganda is the reason, because we used when we discovered that countries that were pejoratively Islamic had lots of minerals and resources and oil underneath them. We began to systematically destroy those governments and label them as terrorist states. People will come up with excuses as to why we did that. Well, there was this bad action or that bad action or this horrific thing happened, but we never do that with ourselves. Right? We never talk about the genocide of the Indians when we discuss America, and so we are perfectly fine with behavior which is untoward when it's our own behavior. We're just not okay with it when it's somebody else's, right? And so if we're going to be fair about fair and we're going to put all the cards on the table, there really isn't that big
Mhm,
of a difference in
mhm,
reality,
mhm,
except for the propaganda that we choose to spill and use. And what we've done is propagandize the American public through legacy media to say that Islam is in some way, shape, or form a vehicle of terrorism around the world. And that is simply not one of its tenets anywhere to be found.
mhm,
And when we look at the principles of praying for, I mean, even in the discussion of religiosity, many people don't understand that in Islam, Jesus is the Messiah
mhm,
and that he is the prophet which comes back to save the world. And so the
mhm,
connection between Islam and Christianity is perhaps stronger than the
mhm.
connection between Christianity and Judeo Christianity,
Yeah.
the Judeo faith. And that is because of this understanding of Messiah, right? And end of time. But when we discuss what does it mean to walk around in a sense of truth and light and purpose, and we should be honest about the tenets
Mhm,
of these three religions, which were all Abrahamic, right? All Abrahamic. By the way, Father Abraham, who had many sons, immigrated from where? Syria to Syria,
mhm,
Palestine. And if you immigrate from Syria to Syria, Palestine, then Palestine already exists. Amen. And
mhm,
so when we discuss the history of the Abrahamic faiths and how things come about, these are three siblings who've been fighting for a very long time over ideology. But the
mhm,
truth is, the reason why we have these backwards thoughts about any one of them is the propaganda
Mhm.
that we put out about an entire group of people based
Mhm.
upon a action, maybe, or maybe
Mhm.
something we planted ourselves and created to help. So yes, when we look at the
So
tapes of 9/11, we hear Israeli voices, and people say those are Israelis
why
on the
has
plane.
no one ever addressed that there were Israeli voices and not
They have.
Islam?
People have addressed it.
And so
If
we
you
just
look it up
ignored it?
right now, if you look it up right now, people, the 9/11 report says that the voices in the recording are Israeli.
Mm.
There
Marjorie,
are images.
Laura says, because I got to go because I got my next guest ready to come in. Marjorie Taylor Greene says she listened to the wrong news, etc. She's now against a lot of what Trump is doing. She has broken from him, and she's not the only one.
No.
People are starting to pay, but it's the people that we wouldn't have expected. My God, on today, right? But once you get on the inside, you better be prepared for what you learn on the inside, right? She was so gung ho about what was happening. So the people have the power for right now. Do you see all the? I don't want you to give up and not recognize that there are gerrymandering going on, that there's redistricting going on to make sure that the Republican Party can continue to win elections because there are really more Latinos in the country than ever. And now that their people have been dragged off of the streets by ICE, you're about to see some stuff. And people are still struggling and need food. Go ahead,
I need
David.
people
Last
to
thought.
understand that there are more independents and Democrats registered to vote than there
Than
have ever been
Republicans.
Republicans
Yeah.
in
Mm-hmm.
each party individually than there
Mm-hmm.
are Republicans. It's just
Mm-hmm.
that Democrats and independents historically don't vote. So
Mm-hmm.
what we saw last night was, for a moment, Democrats and independents saying, "I'm going to exercise my right, my
Mm-hmm.
freedom, my duty to America to vote to tick the box." And so what I hope this
Mm-hmm.
does is lights a fire under the butt, not only
Mm-hmm.
of those individuals who sat at home this time, those individuals who went unvoted this time, but also of the Democratic Party and of other parties, that they should not ignore the people's will. The people spoke.
I said it in
People
the beginning. Listen, in Philadelphia, unofficial 2025 election results, voter turnout, total ballots cast 359,873, registered voters 1,070,000, ballots cast at the polling by mail 73,000, but by the polling place, honey, them folks walked on in 286,285. And this is just unofficial numbers. This number could grow. The
And
other thing that,
congratulations to Larry
yes, who
on
won
his
his
win
election,
and
yes.
on retaining the three Supreme Court
Court
justices.
justices, absolutely, absolutely.
So important for
Mm-hmm,
holding the line. This is the only section of the government that is currently working,
mm-hmm,
right? It's the Supreme Court justices around the country in different
mm-hmm.
states. These are the places where people are challenging things. Congratulations to New Jersey on its election of a Democratic governor, so that the things that are being put through by the Supreme Courts can't be undone. So we
Right.
can't just walk into these places with armed police as ICE, right?
And remember, this government says they're giving the control back to the states. So the states have decided, if I'm going to live here and we want some stuff done, this is what we're going to do. It's been an interesting time, David. I'm so proud that you and I, Alexandra Jackson says, and that's why there were issues in Chester County. It was only the independent voters whose ballots were having the issue. So they're trying to figure out ways, right? So the tide is turning. I pray to God that I live to see this two-party system become something different, because there are so many more people becoming independents versus being Republican or Democrat. And instead of sitting around muling about us not focusing on, we are focused, and that's why we're seeing what we're seeing right now.
And
I
we see it
spoke
on a
of,
local level, right? We see
yes,
that instead of the Working Families Party has two seats in
yes,
city governance, right?
yes,
We see this
yes.
third party system growing, this movement for people who actually speak to the people.
One last thing. I went and looked at the judges' retention races. It looks like all the judges are going to be retained. Let me tell
Yeah.
you what I saw. The repudiation of about three of them, where people said no, up to like 30%, 32%. So even that is shifting. And I think those judges who are being told no in the ballot box are going to be watched a lot more by the Philadelphia Inquirer. There was going to be people showing up in their courtrooms. So people are going to be collecting evidence based on what they see and know.
And
People are tired, y'all.
they come up in 2 years. In
No,
2 years,
the retention, that's a 10-year job.
No, 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 no. So this was three judges. We have three more
No,
coming
no, no,
up.
no. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the local judges in Philadelphia, the 10-year
Correct.
retention, right?
Yes. We
That's
also
what.
have
Yeah.
we have three more judges coming up in the next round on retention for the
Yep.
next cycle, and
Mhm.
they are Republican judges. And so I want
Mhm.
to see, do we oust the Republican judges in this
Mhm.
next cycle? That'll tell
Mhm.
us if we're on the same path here of a
Mhm.
shift of kind of right. We shifted quite boldly into this conservatism very
Mhm.
quickly. I
Mhm.
wonder how
Mhm.
quickly we shift out of it in this bubble. So yes, we retain
Yeah.
these three now, and there were votes to say, "Come look at these people. Let's see what they're doing." But I want to
Yeah.
also see what happens now with the next three coming up next year.
Yes, that's happening there. And the midterms are next year. Shakila said it's only going to become something different when the parties embrace what is going on, or they don't embrace it. They may not embrace it, right? Because they're accustomed to doing what they do. And so, again, people who are not endorsed are going to show up as dark horses and win these elections.
Let me tell you, I
Yeah.
think they're embracing it. I think Gavin Newsom's rhetoric has been very interesting to watch over the last few weeks. He has become very fiery. He's become very vocal and very
Mhm.
fist pounding against what the party line wanted him to do, and he's
Mhm.
winning big numbers. Mandami is actually still on the ballot as a Democrat, right? He didn't
Mhm.
run as an independent.
Mhm.
I think what we're watching is a shift in party. I think
Mhm.
what happened with the Republican Party, in which MAGA came in and took it over, is now happening in the Democratic Party on a different wing.
Yes,
Um,
I
I
agree.
am cautious to say that I pray that while the boisterous, right, we always wanted them to fight. We were always so angry, just
Yes.
sat and didn't fight. While the fight's there, I want them to not move themselves so far to a different agenda that they lose the country in the middle.
Child. They
Um,
have to start listening. They have
it's
to start listening. And the people are telling them you're not listening. And so these are the choices that we're going to make. We're on
absolutely.
the Democrat. They're on the Democratic ticket, but they're mostly not endorsed, and all these. And I mean, up and down. The first Muslim lieutenant governor in Virginia, like all the things are happening across the country. They're just repudiating up and down, up and down.
What a smack in the face of DEI, right? The response of the people who so we removed DEI,
Mm-hmm.
removed this and the other because people said this is a job for white men. And today we see that we've elected women
Mm-hmm.
and Islamic brown people
Mm-hmm.
to fill these most cherished
Mm-hmm.
and important chairs.
Yeah. David, I look forward to having a conversation with you on Monday, honey, because there's a
All
lot
right.
more to discuss, and I'm sure there'll be lots more that comes out of these election poll results by the time we talk again on Monday. Thank you. Always a pleasure for jumping
Always a
in.
pleasure.
Mhm. Bye,
Cheers.
honey. Bye bye. Oh, Lord. Mercy, mercy, mercy. I'm about to let my second guest in, and it's a conversation I also want you to hear. Dr. Hutchins, good morning, sir. Can you hear me? I don't know if you can hear me. Dr. Gregory C. Hutchins Jr. is an assistant professor and there he is, and PhD EDD program coordinator in the Educational Leadership and Policy Studies ELP program at Howard University School of Education, a former K-12 superintendent and national education chair. He brings over 25 years of experience as a teacher, principal, central office administrator, and college admissions counselor. He's the founder and CEO of two national educational consulting firms, Revolutionary ED LLC, which helps school systems advance equity focused strategies without politicized language, and Hutchins and Associates, which provides executive coaching, strategic planning, and governance support to education leaders nationwide. It is important that he and I have this conversation. He is also co author of Getting into Good Trouble at School, a practical guide for school leaders committed to equity centered transformation. And of course, he's a member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. You know, gonna throw that in there. Good morning, sir. Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Good
Good morning.
morning.
It's early in the morning.
It is early. Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. We get up real early in the morning. Listen, we've been
I
on
love
since
it.
6:20. Um, Before we get into the conversation about education, because as you are aware, education is being gutted at the national level.
Oh,
I want you to
yes.
talk about how that's impacting colleges such as Howard University, who I'm told was given $80 million
80
recently.
million, yes. We were getting $80 million recently. Thank you.
And that would be Jeff Bezos' ex-wife,
That's
who has
right.
been given a lot of money to HBCUs,
HBCUs.
again, using the power for good. Jennifer says, "Good morning, Dr. Hutchins."
Good morning.
Oh, she's a Howard University grad, you can see.
Hate you.
Um, yes. So let's talk about the impact of education at the federal level, things being gutted, and how that impacts your school, Howard University.
Yeah, and not only does it impact Howard University, it impacts HBCUs, K-12
Mhm.
education, jobs nationally. You know, what we are going through right now is absolutely crazy. It's absolutely crazy. I mean,
Yes,
people have
yes.
discredited public education for so many years already,
Mhm.
but this is probably the worst that's happening right now in regards to having all of these employees laid off in the U.S. Department of Education who were helping us with all the federal funding. So think about this: your federal funding for students with special needs, your federal funding for students who are on free and reduced meals, your federal funding for professional learning for your schools. I mean, to provide resources for your students. All of these things are being impacted with our employees who are not at work, right? And it's not just in regards to the shutdown. They
Mhm.
gutted the U.S. Department of Ed before the
Yep.
shutdown, right? So they were firing folks. I had friends who were calling me saying, I'm no longer working next week, right? They called me in today and we're done. So that is going to impact our HBCUs like Howard University, because this is also funding that is going into our universities for research, for professional learning, to ensure that our students have their Pell Grants so that they can
Mhm.
get their college education. So just think of the strategy behind this. If you take all of these resources from our Black and our Brown students, we then no longer provide them the opportunity to get the education. When you don't get the education, that impacts your economy in the future. And then what does it do? It sends us back to times where are back into our oppressive stages. And this is a cycle that is about to happen again.
But Dr. Hutchins, can we talk? Me and
All
you,
right, let's
we're
talk.
friends. I mean, we met for the first time a couple weeks ago, but
I know, but
let's
we
have
should.
this discussion. What is this visceral movement towards taking away the right for education for Black and Brown people? What is
Yes.
that movement? Why is that so important to so many people that it is okay for that to continue to happen? I
Yes.
want you to give me your thoughts around that.
Yeah. So think of this. Think back during the pandemic when I was superintendent at that time, and everyone was all about critical race theory and why are we teaching? You know, this
But
is
you didn't, not in the K-12 institution. It
yeah,
never did.
we never had CRT in schools. It was a higher ed thing. However, we did teach our young people about their history. And just think of how proud Black and Brown children are when they get to hear the real history. Think of this: the real history also discredits white America. So if you're going to put that real history out that shows all of these, statues and all of these noble people that we're saying are so great are not so great, and that they're evil and that they're racist and that they stole things from people, right? So they're thieves. Who's going to want that history out there, right? You now
Mhm.
discredit the right race. So there's been a movement to make sure that white continues to be right.
But who
And
does
that
that help? Because the country is shifting. The color of the country is shifting,
it
right? The
is
hue of the country is
local
shifting.
majority.
Why is
Black.
there such a fear for Black and Brown people to grow and to thrive? Because it only helps the economy.
Yeah. So think about this. Let's go back to Reconstruction era. During the Reconstruction era, when Black folks in America began to have rights, right? When we had our first Black senators, we began to move beyond white America, especially rural white America, right? And when that happened, we became a threat. They shut it down. They shut it down instantly, right? That's when we became Plessy versus Ferguson, separate but
Mhm,
equal, right?
mhm.
And they said, okay, we're going to make it separate because you all having access to what we have access. You're now going beyond where our lowest population can go. And it's happening again. We started seeing a lot of movement over the past several years, right? It started when, Obama got into office. We
Mhm.
started having that empowerment and seeing Black and Brown people getting jobs and seeing Black women owning businesses. Black women they're the most educated people in
Yeah,
America, by
they
the
are.
way, right?
Yes.
So, right.
Mhm.
So when you begin to start hearing all of this, white America gets nervous because they're in fear. Some of them, not all, but some of them are in fear that we're
Mhm.
going to do what they did to us.
And do they recognize that all Black folks want, Black and brown folks want, is to have a piece of the same America, to live in peace, to get the education, right? They were told they had to have the degrees, which is why Black women and men, they don't talk about Black men for a particular reason. I don't know why, but I'm seeing a lot of Black men getting getting PhDs too. That's
Yes, ma'am.
not discussed as much. So at Howard University, you talked about the educational department at the federal level being gutted. What does that mean for the students who can't get their Pell Grants? Right? How does that increase the cost of their student loans from
Yeah.
your point of
And
view?
some of them can't even get some of the student loans because they're cutting some of those programs as well. So then their parents, and many parents can't get the loans either, right? So think about our families who are coming from our most underrepresented and underprivileged communities. They don't have the means to go out and get just a loan. Their parents can say, "Okay, I'm gonna get you a loan so you can go to college." So we're going back to times where Black folks, they have the desire to go to school, but now they don't have the money to go. And everybody should have that option. If I'm choosing to go to get my higher education degree, I should be able to have that option. But it is now being stripped away from many of our young people. Not only is that happening in regards to like grants, let's think about funding so that you can have resources in these spaces, whether it is having housing for students, whether it's having the resources of staffing for these students. All of these things are going to be impacted over time. So I think it is excellent that we have philanthropists out there who are giving dollars to our HBCUs who needed the money even when we were getting the most from federal government. We still were not receiving everything that we needed at our HBCUs across America. So I'm just hoping that we find a way to get our Black and brown students back into these schools. So folks out there with money, continue to give. Make sure you're giving scholarships, especially for our students who don't have the means, the financial means to get into these institutions, who have the desire to go to these schools.
And as a Black man who has been in higher education, K-12, you were superintendent.
That's right.
How many schools were you superintendent of?
In two school districts, Shaker Heights, Ohio, and Alexandria City Schools outside of DC.
Ooh. Can you talk to us? Because what prompted you to write the book Good Trouble? To co-write the book Good Trouble?
Yeah. So Good Trouble, this is the crazy thing. I wrote the book in my bed at night on my cell phone because my wife, I used to have a laptop on the bed. And my wife was like, it's too bright. I can't sleep. So I started using my cell phone and I ended up just writing my book on my cell phone, which is crazy. But what triggered the book was George Floyd. The murder of George Floyd, when America was at this racial, crossroads or reckoning, I realized that I needed to do something. I needed to have a voice, and I knew my expertise was education. So how can I ensure that the next generation of our Black and brown children, and all children, honestly, can be raised in a nation where they're not judged by the color of their skin? I'm using Martin Luther King's word. So I said, I want to write something about anti-racism. How can we be anti-racist in our schools? What does that look like when it comes to education, when it comes to discipline, when it comes to how do we interact with our families who come from Black and brown communities, right? So I began to write this book. And I also decided to leave the superintendency because I needed to go beyond just Alexandria. I was very kind of insular as a superintendent, and I wanted to be able to expand. Folks would say when I wrote the book, Dr. Hutchings, he only cares about his career. He only cares about him. That's why he's writing this book. And I said, the book is about other people. It has nothing to do with just about me. It's about all Black children in America, right? That's bigger than me. I'm writing this bigger than me. So if you're going to pigeonhole me into this one spot, I guess I need to spread my wings and make sure I'm starting my own business, a Black-owned business, and working for an HBCU so I can really have impact that's long-lasting and sustainable.
What were some of your challenges as a superintendent, and what message do you have for young Black men who are now in school, in middle school, high school, to encourage them, because it's only getting worse? They're not able to do a lot of things now, right? So what message do you have for them?
Yeah, I think the biggest message is to, one, dream, continue to dream, right? Because, one thing that I did before I became a superintendent, I had that on my mirror in my bathroom that I was going to be a superintendent for years. I
Mhm.
reminded myself every single day, you are going to be a superintendent. I became a superintendent at 35 years old, right? I was young. I'm
Oh, look at
48
you,
now.
Mr. Mandami. Like,
No, 35 years old. I was superintendent 10 years. That's why everybody's always like, well, you weren't a superintendent that long. I'm like, no, I was superintendent for 10 years. No
yeah.
scandal and never been fired. And Black in America, that's a lot, right?
Yes.
But I was 35 when I became superintendent. And if I would have listened to all of the naysayers along the way,
Mhm.
I would not have been able to accomplish that. So many people told me that, I need more years. Why are you doing this now? It's not the right profession, right? And I had to stay true to what my dream was. I had a dream of trying to impact people beyond the classroom. And
Mhm.
the superintendency was the way for me to do that. And I stayed true to that. And I made sure I had a social network that
Mhm.
were around, even as a teacher. I remember going to the National Alliance of Black School Educators, NAPSE. I was like 23 years old. I was in
Mm.
spaces of other Black superintendents before I was even a superintendent. I was a teacher, right? So I was putting myself in those spaces so that I can ask them questions on how did they do it? What did they do wrong? Right? What would they do better? What advice can they give me? So I
Mhm.
was hungry early, and it paid dividends. And then one final thing I do have to say for our young people is to have a mentor. And my mentor, Dr. Billy K.
Mhm.
Kennedy, he passed away earlier this year in June of 2025. He is like my godfather. He hired me as an assistant principal when I was like 25 years old. I was young. He told me that, I was a risk, but I was worth the risk. And he stayed true to that for over 20 years. For
Mhm.
me as my mentor, first Black superintendent in Chesterfield County, first Black state superintendent for the state of Virginia. And he was just a remarkable human being. So you got to have a mentor and somebody you can look up to so that you can see yourself in that role. And that person needs to be a Black mentor. That is so important. I got white mentors out here too, but the
Mhm.
Black mentor understands the lived experience and the
Mhm.
challenges that you are going to face as a Black person, especially a
Mhm.
Black man in America.
You're offering some sage advice that I hope people are either taking notes or going back to rewatch this. Let's talk a little bit more about the book now. So, where can the book be found? What's the premise of the book?
Yes, you can find the book on Amazon, right? You can find it on my website, which is www.revolutionary-ed.com. But it's out there. You can also find it, with Corwin Publishers. They're my publisher. But the premise of the book is
Hold
around
on, go back to the website for me, please. www.revolutionary-ed.com.
ed.com. Yes. And then you're
I'm just writing this down because someone will call me and say, "Tell me about that book again." Uh, good trouble. Okay. All right. And so, what's the premise of the book, Dr.
Yeah,
Hutchins?
so the premise of the book is to have 6 steps to getting into good trouble at school. One is knowing your history, right? If you don't know your history, how can
Mhm.
you truly understand what's happening today in our times, right?
Mhm.
Number 2 is around committing to racial equity. A lot of times folks say, I'm going to commit to equity, but you got to commit to
Mhm.
racial equity. It
Mhm.
is a race thing. Bottom line,
Mhm.
you add race
Mhm.
to any disparity in America,
Mhm.
it just it's exacerbated, right? So we got
Mhm.
to commit to that racial equity. 3, you have to make sure that you are looking at the de facto segregation that's happening in your schools. So when you have honors classes and you have all these guidelines to get into these honor classes, or you have to get a special recommendation from a certain teacher
Mhm.
endorsed by
Mhm.
somebody,
Mhm.
that's gatekeeping, right? That is
Mhm.
a de facto segregation. So you can be in a predominantly Black school, but you go into an honors class that's predominantly white. How is that possible, right? That's de
Mhm.
facto segregation that's happening across America in our schools. Number 4, you want to make sure that you are looking at discipline as not being a form of a pipeline to prison, right? Because what's happening in some of our schools, we got zero tolerance policies. We're putting kids out of the buildings just because they might have talked back to a teacher. Let's
Mhm.
find more restorative practices. Let's
Mhm.
figure out the root cause as to why our young people are coming to school each day with attitudes or acting out. You don't come in and say, I'm going to act a fool. Something is happening. Let's give them
Yes.
the social workers, the counselors. Some schools today, which is crazy across America, have more police officers than counselors or psychologists or social workers.
Mhm.
So they got
Mhm.
a SRO, but they don't have a counselor for their students.
Yeah. So
That's a
SRO is a school resource officer, and you're absolutely correct. Yes, we're seeing that a lot. Yeah.
And then number five is around strategic thinking and strategic planning. How can you ensure that, yes, you have a roadmap to success, but how do you navigate that to ensure your Black and brown students' needs are being met? And then number six, you got to have courage and be bold,
Oh,
right?
thank you.
And if you don't
Thank
have the
you.
courage and the boldness to do this work, you
Mhm.
will fail, right? You
Mhm.
have to be able to go out and say, by any means necessary, I'm going to make this
Mhm.
happen. And then I'm
Mhm.
going to make this happen being my authentic self. Because if
Mhm.
you don't know who you are as a Black person
Mhm.
in America, you are not going to be able to succeed. So you got to embrace who you are and be unapologetic about being Black.
I have a story to share with you. I shared it with a friend yesterday. And I was talking about a man that walked up to me and said, "My daughter is a principal, and she does not have one third of the courage that you have. And I wish you could mentor." And our daughter is older than me. And some years later, that same daughter, who was a principal, cried, went into her office, and she pulled me inside her office and she started to cry and she said, "I did things to compromise you because I thought the superintendent would show favor to me. Gave me
Mhm.
my own school, make sure I would be okay. And so I was watching you and reporting back to them about, what you were up to, and just bawled. I am so sorry." I said, there. I knew what you were up to.
Mhm.
Right. And so let's have a discussion about Black folks who find themselves compromised to keep the job. Black folks who find themselves compromised and are used as surveillance for Black folks who are
That's right.
bold and courageous, brave.
So true. Listen, if you can't walk into an interview and get the job by being yourself, you don't need the job.
Mm, mm, mm,
Because,
mm,
a lot of folks will go in and feel like they have to mold themselves and be,
mhm,
somebody else. But just remember, if you
mhm,
do that, you're going to always have to remember who that person was that showed up in that
mhm,
interview.
mhm,
And that is work. And
mhm,
it makes you not like your job. It makes you regret and be resentful around having the position.
mhm.
Go in as your authentic self, and this is why it's so important for us to help young people know who they are. This is why we got to have culturally responsive teaching in
Yes.
classrooms where students can see themselves in a classroom and in books and in literature, and as superintendents and
Mhm.
principals, teachers. Because when you don't feel that who you are is worthy and good enough, you will
Yes.
grow up to become an adult that feels unworthy and not good
Mhm,
enough, right?
mhm,
And society works at that. My wife and I, we're raising a Black daughter who is now 20 years old in college, Micah, huge shout out to her, a junior in college, and our son, Gregory the third,
mhm,
who's a junior in high school, a Black boy that we are raising in
mhm,
America. It is very difficult to try to raise them when society is telling them constantly they're not good enough.
mhm,
They have Black
mhm,
skin, right?
mhm,
Sometimes Micah has her natural hair. Sometimes she wants to
mhm,
blow it out. Sometimes
mhm,
she wants to have braids. Whatever,
mhm,
whatever she
mhm,
chooses. Gregory has his hair up, looking like Frederick
mhm,
Douglass sometimes,
mhm, mhm,
But embracing the texture of their hair, embracing the color
yes.
of their skin, we
Mhm,
have to pour that into them at home. But as soon as they walk out of our house, all odds are against them. They tell
yes.
them that's not good enough. That doesn't look good.
Mhm,
You're not
mhm,
worthy. You're not beautiful. You're not intelligent, right? So just imagine if you're in a household that you may not know because you don't feel that about yourself. So you can't pour it into your kids if you don't feel it about yourself.
mhm.
We're damaging our young people, right? And then we're
Agreed.
making up adults who are damaged, and they become like the woman that you just mentioned,
Yeah.
who is working against you, who have
And
who,
her own best interest, because at the very end they turned against her. They turned
yes,
against her at the end.
it's
And she
horrible.
was like, "Oh my God, I thought if I had done everything that they told me to do, I was going to be okay." But what was so striking was her father, who was like, "I wish she had one." And let me tell you, it didn't, when you are courageous, y'all, it comes with a lot of nicks and hits.
Oh,
And oh, dear God, on today.
Lord.
I used to, I remember I was a school board member. And the school board driver, who's now retired, so I can talk about this, would come to me to drop off my packet, and he would say, "Oh, we are told that if we are found talking to you, we are going to be fired."
Mm,
All the staff was just like, they're not to, if they're caught on camera speaking to you, he said, and that only made us want to talk to you more. So they would find spaces and they would say, all right, Miss Andrea, we're going to be at such and such a place. Come meet us so we can tell you all the things, right? Because I stayed true to myself. And it is important, you know, but they would shut up when I walked into meetings. They wouldn't tell me certain things. They would ask me to try and find out. Unfortunately for them, because I had built my marble balls of trust in my jar, they were telling me things before they even knew I knew. You understand what I'm saying? So to stay true to yourself is a beautiful, beautiful thing. It comes with the knocks and the bruises. I know you could tell some of these same stories, Dr. Hutchins, but staying true to yourself is so much more rewarding than trying to fit in with people who truly don't want you there. Right? I knew a man who wanted to become principal, but the superintendent says you can, as long as he has locks, he'll never be principal in this school district. I went to him and I said, here's what we're going to do. I went to another superintendent in another school district and I said, I've got this young man who is really, really good, blah, 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 blah. He was taken over the other school district to become principal, much to her consternation. So even as people, we have to stand up and support those around us who we see are being knocked. You just don't sit in a corner and suck a lollipop and says, I'm getting my money. And then you show up and you're the ones doing the discipline because you want to be seen as a part of the crew, as a part of the blending in of where you work. So in order for us to address racism and discrimination on a certain level, we have to address ourselves because we've become conditioned into being the very slave masters to our children who should really be doing well under our tutelage. Did I say too much?
No, you said it right. You said it right. And I think you made a good point. One thing I want to just mention really quickly about Black women, right? My research is on Black women superintendents at Howard. And what I'm finding is that the Black woman superintendent is the most disrespected educator in America, but the most educated person in America, right? Yes. So the most disrespected educator in America, but the most educated person in America. And my research is showing that Black women, many of them have found that sometimes they're not getting the support even from their Black sister, right? And, you know, now don't get me wrong, a lot of Black women are working together. So I'm not saying I don't take it as all Black women have issues, but the common thread that I saw was that they felt that Black women did not support each other.
Did they say why?
When they were in those spaces. And what they said was that when they got into their superintendency roles, because now they're the head honcho, right? They're the ones who get to say yes and no. That other Black women sometimes might find some form of insecurity because now they're jealous that you have gotten to that spot. And how did you get there? So the jealousy gets the best of them and they can't even see how wonderful this opportunity is. That let me uplift this Black woman, right? That now their jealousy is taking over and now I got issues and qualms with this woman. And one of actually a couple of my Black women superintendents and former superintendents that I had spoken with had said when they were put on the chopping block, these were two Black women who were forced out of their roles. A Black woman was the final say in yes or no, and both of them voted against them.
There's a Black educator right now that I'm so proud of that she reached out to me the other day. She says, can we sit down and talk about how education moves forward, how we as a people move forward? She's very strong, very Sankofa. And I sometimes worry about her in terms of folks coming for her neck. But you know what she did? She literally built a cadre of community members that are consistently around her and the children in her school, so that even as the school district may look at her and say, blah, 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 the community leaders are saying, well, look at what she's doing over here. So she's winning awards despite what they may be thinking on the inside about how quickly she's growing. So we have to learn how to find the supports, the authentic supports around us, because we know it's going to come. We know it's going to come.
Thing real quick about supports, because at Howard, we just recently had a reconvening of Black women because we
Mhm.
said we want to ensure that
Mhm.
our Black women superintendents have a social network. There are organizations like Sister Soups that's out there, right? Which we're so excited about. There are a lot of, Black women think tanks and things that are starting to happen. We
Mhm.
need our Black women to unite. And as Black men, we need to make
Mhm.
sure that we are upholding our Black women, speaking goodness, even when they
Mhm.
are not around, speaking up if somebody's trying to say something negative, right,
Mhm.
about Black women. I'm quick to do that. That's why I was shocked to
Mhm.
hear some of our Black women superintendents say, I feel like we're not supported by Black men and other Black
Mhm.
women. And some of our
Mhm.
big supporters have been white men. I was shocked to hear that
Mhm.
because I got a Black mama, a Black wife, a Black daughter. I've always been
Mhm.
a male feminist my whole life. My mom was like, "You gonna love Black women," So
Yes.
I just didn't understand that concept, but that is
Yes.
just not what is true for many of
Yeah.
the Black women that I have spoken with. So we got
Mhm.
to change that narrative and continue to have these social networks and support groups, in which
Mhm.
many Black women are beginning to do, and they've started.
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
commend them for that because that is what's going to allow them to continue to soar.
Yeah.
Um,
We have to heal and hug.
we do.
Heal and hug. Heal and heal from the harms and hug each other into a space of we're going to do this. And even when you disagree with your sister, disagree with them privately,
That's
right? Not in a public space. Because remember, we're all human beings. We're all going to make mistakes. Not all of us belong in the places that we are, but many of us do belong. And when we try to denigrate and take them down, it's an issue. Someone from the Education Institute says also we have to remember we sell our souls for status and prestige. We have to watch ourselves as Black leaders. Yes. And yes, we have to bring back community within Black leaders. Agreed. Yes. I don't know who this person is, but they are talking.
that's right.
Janelle says, I went through that undermined by other Black women. Oh, Lord.
Yeah,
The Education Institute says, because we have been trained to compete against each other, we have to stop this. We
that's
have to
right.
stop this.
Lift
Um,
each other up, work together instead of
yeah.
tearing each other apart.
Dr. Hutchins, this has been an incredible interview. I reserve the right to
I,
bring you back. I do.
I would love to come back.
I
I
do.
appreciate the opportunity to, and it was great actually meeting you. When I heard your voice, I'm like, I know this woman.
That was so funny. I was
Woman,
so
woman.
stunned. I don't even know. I was so stunned. Dennis looked at me and said, why do you think nobody knows what you're doing? It was so funny. I'm grateful. Tell them one more time where they can find your book. And I'm going to speak to my producer to have you on because I believe, as a superintendent, a past superintendent, you can answer some of the questions that we have about education. So, as the issues around education arise within school districts around the country, locally and nationally, I'd like to bring you back on as a featured
Yeah.
guest to answer those questions. Is that all right?
Yes, I would love that. And they can reach me at www.revolutionary-ed.com and also www.drhutchings.com. So check me out.
drhutchins.com.
That's
Yes.
right.
Okay.
www.drhutchins.com. So I do, executive coaching, keynote speaking, professional learning, leadership development, and school board relations, because our school boards are really
Yes.
what is going to help our schools continue to
Mhm.
have goals and guardrails to be successful.
Goals and guardrails and school board.
And I
I'm
pulled
writing
that.
this down because
Grateful. So thank you, AJ, for that. Goals and guardrails. I'm reading this book right now called
yeah,
Get Great
great
on
on their
Great.
behalf. Yes,
Yes,
yes.
great book.
And
I'm glad you pulled that.
school board elections have become just as contentious as president of the United States. I
Oh,
swear.
it happens, and we keep letting it happen because we keep voting them in there.
Yeah, yeah,
Unfortunately, we like to see mess in the boardroom, which is
yes, yeah. Doctor, whew, this is good. This is some good stuff. This is way better than I thought it would have been. Like, listen, this was good stuff. Dr. Hutchins, thank
great.
you. Dr. Gregory Hutchins Jr., thank you so much
Thank
for joining us today, especially on the day after the election. I was like, ooh,
you. Yeah, we got a Virginia. We got our woman in here. I love it.
I heard.
I'm like, go Abigail.
Y'all went out
It
and
was like
voted.
in Virginia again. I couldn't work here because we had our governor banned equity, but now I can come back to working in my own state.
Oh, wow.
I
Wow.
know.
And you have a Muslim lieutenant governor.
Yes,
First
which
time ever.
loving,
Yes.
loving this, loving it.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Virginia's
all
back.
right. So now you can come back to working in your own
I
state.
can back and work in my own state.
Yeah. My brother, it has been a pleasure. Thank you for your grace. Thank you for your kindness and your thoughtfulness when we met. And I'm grateful that you recognized my voice because I would have missed this really important conversation. Really important conversation. Always a pleasure, sir. We'll talk
Thank you.
soon, okay?
All right. Bye
All
bye.
right. Bye bye. Bye bye. All right, as Dr. Hudson sign, what a day, 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 what a. There's going to be way more. Ah, Viola says I already Googled his name. Yes, 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 yes. Um, there are a lot of interviews coming up. You know, there are folks now asking if they can be a part of this conversation on this platform so we can discuss what is really happening in our schools, in life. Remember my saying that Senator Art Haywood is going to be on. I asked specifically for him to talk about the SNAP benefits and what's happening there. You know, how we can support people in this conversation. Just because we sent a specific and a deciding voice across the country last night does not mean that things are going to change automatically. And so we need to know how to support those who are fighting at the state level for a budget to be passed in Pennsylvania. God knows we're going into December and we still don't have a budget. You know, how people can get SNAP benefits. What does that look like? How are we able to keep the healthcare affordable? Dr. Ayla Stanford was on, and I swear she was the first person that actually voiced it in a way so that the average citizen could understand. This is why the Democrats are holding the line. If they allow the country to reopen based on what they have put on the table for the budget, then our health insurance is going to be unmanageable, unaffordable, and people will die. So, you know, we just have to really navigate and manage through. Pray, keep praying for me. Just keep praying, okay? David and I consistently continue to have the dialogue. I keep getting great feedback about David Alexander Jenkins, how well researched and educated he is, and so I thank his parents for making him look up and research. And when he got it wrong, he had to go back and get it right. So he's been taught to research in a way that is impactful and just so that people can understand. And he's created a pathway for people to continue to learn and want to learn. So you all have been researching yourselves now. When David comes on, he was like, yes. And there people are like, yes, we looked that up and we saw that. And David is telling the truth because he tells you all the time. Don't just believe what I'm saying to you. Right? Just go do your research yourself before things start to shift and change in AI, because there's some things we can't find anymore. Purposeful, perhaps, right? Make sure you hold on to your books, right? It's amazing. It's just amazing. Marguerite says everyone wants to be a part of Mornings with Mother. It's a place to be because I'm intentional about not just giving you a bunch of news. We want to talk to people who can curate the kind of things to give you the answers that you need in layman's terms. Thank you, Janelle. She said this was a great interview. He has a wonderful spirit. All right, all right, all right. Education institutes say, don't forget our children with disabilities are impacted by this budget impasse as well. Yes, Head Start, there's a threat to Head Start programs now, which is frightening because so many young babies, you know, three and up are in Head Start. If that's impacted and they're shut down because of the budget impasse, I'm not really sure what's going to happen here. Hold on, y'all. Lord Jesus. Yes, and my friend's husband became the first Black super school board director in, is it Upper Moreland, Lower Moreland? Yay! Listen, honey, listen, all the things, all the things. And so I am grateful to all of you. We'll continue to curate the discussions, continue to talk about what matters. We will be here. We are here. And so when people were like, you know, you need this amount of likes, no, I need to do the work and do it with integrity and do it with fidelity so that when you find me, you stay. How about that? Not for you to just click on because there's a whole bunch of likes and you get here and you're like, there's nothing here. When you find us, you will stay because you'll understand that this is what we're doing and how we're doing it. And we're very intentional about how we're doing it. And we treat people well. I have said this over and over again. The one thing that crawls under my skin is when people say they're going to do their work and they don't do their work, right? I will challenge you on every bit of everything, even if it costs me something, because My name, that's all I have, is my name. And to my solid mentor, I've said her name 1,000 times, but she's the one I call just about every week. This is how I'm feeling about this. This is what I think. What's the history around this? What's the history around that? And she'll say such and such and such, and we'll have a long conversation about a history going all the way back into the 70s and 80s. That we require. You just can't listen to your own voice and think you know everything. And be very thoughtful, pay attention, listen. Don't always try to fit yourselves into these round holes when you're a square peg. Pay attention, learn before you try to insert yourself, because what you do not know can harm you. Can harm you. And Angela Jones says, and get federal workers back to work. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. This episode of Mornings with Mova is officially over. I have a funeral this morning. I am Andrea Lawful Sanders. I'll see you when I see you. Bye, everybody. Bye, darlings. Bye-bye.